Hello and welcome to Worthy Woman Healing Podcast, where we are healing women's minds, bodies, and souls one trigger at a time. I am Lisa Czak, your host. On today's episode, we have a very special guest that I cannot wait for you to meet. Stay tuned. So on today's episode, we have a #1 best-selling author, Nicole Danielle, and I'm going to read to you her bio. It's so powerful. You're not going to want to miss this. Ready? Most people are just living to die. Here I am just dying to live, is the whisper Nicole Danielle heard on the darkest night of her life. A beauty queen who committed a crime. A lover who committed a sin. A dreamer told her to get her head out of the clouds. A bright light dimmed by the world. Life got very dark, and every time Nicole tried to change the narrative, the noise was just too loud. You're not enough. You will never be anything more than what you are. You're a dime a dozen. Your voice doesn't matter. You're a fat fucking pig. Bullied, abused, abandoned, betrayed, silenced, until now. For so long, Nicole Danielle didn't speak, but because of her son, she finally will. In her gripping debut memoir, Nicole shares her triumphant journey through this beautiful yet heartbreaking thing called life. Her raw, unapologetic, and profoundly vulnerable voice pulls you into a roller coaster of highs and lows, affirming the essence of humanity. Join Nicole on this inspiring voyage of self-discovery as her stories reveal that there has always been someone there, her voice. However, simply wasn't strong enough until now to tell you so. Unlock the pages of Diamonds Beneath the Darkness and dare to feel the reality of what it truly means to be human. This is going to be the most powerful interview, and I cannot wait. Let's bring her on, Nicole Danielle. Yeah, well, let's just start. Okay?
Oh, it's so great to see your beautiful face. Thank you for having me today and allowing me to show up as myself because it's been a day with the kids. So,
are you kidding? You look incredible.
Oh, thanks.
I'm like, you don't look like you're having a day with the kids.
Okay.
I remember those days.
So
I am just so excited. Just to give a little background for my viewers, Nicole and I don't know each other at all. And we happen to be in the same publishing group. And I saw that you were launching your book.
Yeah.
And I'm reading it. And I was like, I need to not even just have you on the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you.
Oh,
just what I was reading, just all the stuff about the launch and just why you wrote the book and everything. It just resonated so much with me. And I got to tell you, though, my heart raced a little.
Really?
In a bad way, when I heard you were a TV producer. Because I don't know if I told you that. I think I told you that I got into the best shape of my life, and then I was groomed by a sexual predator. He's actually a sex trafficker, and he happens to be a TV producer, an executive producer for true crime shows, advocating for women. So my heart I had to check in with myself because if you noticed, I kind of disappeared for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get into it in the messages that we were talking because I thought, this is real. Let's talk about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I was triggered because I'm like, she's a TV producer. And that part of my brain went, what if he sent her? What if it's a setup? Because actually he sent people to my home to get me, to silence me, to not write my book.
Wow,
so
really?
Like, I had to pray about it. I had to do my own healing on myself. No, it's good. I always say triggers are about you, right? Not about the other person.
Trigger us though. Like, oh my goodness.
But you don't ever apologize for who you are, ever.
No.
Ever. But for me, it was one of those things that I thought I was, I have a producer producing this podcast, right?
Yeah.
And you're a woman too. So I was like, what is going on here? But then I remembered when he sent the two people to the door, it was a man and a woman. And he always told me when he wrote his true crime shows, he always wrote in a woman, right? Because the perpetrator uses women to recruit the victims, because a woman is more likely to trust another woman. So it really sort of like, what if he's using
Oh my God.
And I thought, wait a minute, what are you doing? Like, your story is out there and you're talking about it. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
Oh my gosh.
How, and honestly, thank you, because triggers, I always say triggers are gifts, right? Clues to where you still need healing. And clearly I still need some healing on that.
Yeah. I promise you I'm not. I'm just
No, I know you're not. But it's just interesting how, and I'm sure you can relate, right? Because you've been through your own traumas, right? And you just never know when it's gonna come up, and weird things too that you think you're healed from, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's still lingering.
Well, but that's why I think this conversation we're about to have today is so powerful, because and so important, because like the healing journey is no joke. And I think it's why, like, not to like deep dive in right away, but like,
yeah, let's deep dive in right away.
I talk about it. It's heavy. This book one is really heavy, but like, I think it's why people put the Band-Aids on, why they self-medicate, why they do all the things, because it's so hard. It's so much harder to heal, right? It's so much harder to do the work, to actually do the work, but it's incredible. Like I'm going through it right now, like in the healing phase. It's like a 3-book thing. No one's ever done a memoir that's a 3-book self-discovery journey thing. But like, so right now I'm in the messy middle of it all. Like, and it's so beautiful in the hardness of it, but it's like, it's just so much easier to ignore it, or turn a blind eye, or not talk about it, or pretend that everything is everything that it's not, because it's just so much harder sometimes for people to sit and feel the things. But when you allow yourself to do that, even though it's like terrifying and it's hard to work through it, it's such a beautiful space to exist in too, you know?
I absolutely love, first of all, when you said a 3-part memoir, I was like,
yeah.
My book was over 400 pages. And I wasn't with SBS. I was with a different writing coach. And SBS once I joined SBS, after it was already published, they said, I think it was your coach that said it to me, I would have turned this probably into like a 3-parter. It's so long, because there's really all these different stories in one book.
Yeah. Are we talking about the same coach that quit during my life?
Yeah.
Who actually told me to like see how much I could spread it out into like an 8-book thing, because he was convinced people can only take bite-sized things at this point in life. So to be honest, this book actually started out very different than what it became. That is no joke. Like, this was going to be a book that was called Plan Me, not like Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan Me. Ooh. And the subtitle was going to be Stop Living the Life Others Expect of You and Start Living the One Life Meant for You, which completely, and it was going to be this part me was my journey, but in the book was the hybrid and the journal space for you, for Plan You to take the prompts for you to do your work. And we were going to do this together. And it was going to be this whole thing. Well, the book blew up to 190,000 words. You can't publish a nonfiction book at 190,000 words. So that's a whole thing in itself. So what it actually became is like the most beautiful journey it could have become, with, part 1 being Diamonds Beneath the Darkness and all of it. It's like, it all has like deep meaning, but yeah, it's it's a journey, but that's what was important, is like to take people along. And so book 1 has really been like the acknowledgement. And I think that's the first step in any big transformational journey and self-discovery journey you take for yourself, is like bringing all the heavy stuff to the surface and acknowledging what's been there all along. Right. And so that's what this first book has been about for me.
What's the heaviest thing? I feel like there's usually one underlying thing.
Yeah.
It kind of drags you down, right? It's sort of layered. So when you peel back the layers, like, what was that one heavy thing that maybe was also scary? We want to talk about that too. Like, was it scary for you to?
Yes, it's terrifying. I was throwing up the week before the launch, like multiple days.
We are soul sisters.
I was terrified to put this book out there. It physically made me sick. Because I think the reviews that are coming in are like what people are giving in response to is exactly what I hoped for, but I was also terrified to know could exist, which is like, it's so real, it's so raw, it's vulnerable, it's like reading a friend's diary. Like, I've never read a book this like intense. Like, my own editor, like, I self-publish, so it's like this is all 100% on me, right? But like, of course, we have to outsource for the things we have to outsource for, and being a producer, you know what you have to like rely on the experts for stuff. But even if at one point one of the editors was like, Nicole, this is like really dark, like you have to give the readers some hope. And I'm like, well, flip side of the coin is anyone that's gone through really hard stuff in life, anyone who's gone to this place of like such darkness knows that sometimes you can't always feel the hope. You know it inside, it's an inner knowing, right? You know it's there, but you can't always see it. And I basically said, I was like, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. That means I did a really good job of writing my book, because my whole
Yes,
thing,
exactly.
I wanted them to feel.
Move them, right? Move.
Yeah. And what I say is it's just like, it's such a simple thing, but it's like they say in the work that we're doing to write or to have these conversations, you have to know like this much more than somebody else, right? And so what I realized is like, yeah, there's all these things like a mom, a wife, a producer, a career, a shitty parents. I can say fuck on the podcast, right? We could say,
yes, this is the pod. Actually,
I say fuck 137 times in my book. It's just like, but at the core of it, it's just like being an expert at being human. And what that means to me is being able to be honest and to feel the things and to talk about things people are so afraid to talk about. It's like, it's hard. Everyone, like, especially in the world we live in today, and I hope for our generations to come, it's a little bit different, but it's like everything is like this. It's what we present. I produce reality television. That's not real life. I do what I want. I've created scenes that don't exist and made you believe that they did. And it's just like, I'm a terrible human most days to admit that's what the journey has been. But for me, this was just so much about, no, it's okay to just admit we're human and it's real and it's hard and it's messy and it's not perfect, but like to feel that is such a beautiful and powerful thing in itself, I came way far away from your question.
No, I don't even remember what the question was. But I absolutely love that.
It's so real. It's just like being human is hard.
people are craving real. And one thing I know just from the work that I do with the women I do, right, is everyone comes to me, they think I'm the only one that's experienced this. Like, I was just reading your bio to the listeners before this, and to be told you're a fat fucking pig.
By the man that was
I've been told that.
Wait, at 130 pounds. At 130 pounds.
Right. I did modeling before, and that executive producer I told you about, he was very damaging in that way. And to be told you're not enough and you're not worth, like, my tagline is you are worth it. And it's because in our hearts, a lot of women don't feel worth it. We open ourselves up to victimization because predators, abusers, they hone in on that. They know, they can sense it. It's weird. It's like they can sniff it out.
It's so interesting to say that, predator, because now it's like my wheels are spinning, and it's just, God, I don't want to label it, but it's like, it falls in line also with, like, I call it the noise in the book. I call it, it's the narcissists, the negativity. It's the people that are so unhappy and don't want to take a hard look at themselves. That all they want to do is they see this light, right? So they just want to like steal it from you for themselves, because how dare you shine brighter than that, because they're not courageous enough to find the strength to just like rise up and be, it's just so like, but it's the same thing. Like, I never would have, this is a really heavy book. Like, this is not for everybody. I'm not for everybody, to talk about things like abuse and to talk about things like abandonment and being bullied, because I changed my name when I was 10 years old for my own protection after I won a pageant and I had a crown on my head. And, it's just all the things. And my Italian side of my roots, I was forced to believe, to hate, and 27 years of never speaking to my father, and then finding out he was found dead, but cutting my mother out of my life 7 years ago. It's just so much stuff. It's so heavy. I opened up about, on my journey to parenthood, and I had 4 pregnancies and I lost 2. And I opened up in a very trigger word. I put a warning in the book, like, this might be hard for some people to read, but I want to be honest about this experience, because this is what someone lived through a different lens that nobody else lived. I get choked up because it's like real and it's having these conversations, right? But when I think about all those people and those things, and I see the very specific faces throughout the books of the people, I never thought to put the word like predator towards it, but there are, and we have many of them in lives, and we call them different things, or we see them in different ways, and it's all kind of just falls in the same little like,
Yeah.
of existence that's very different from people like who you and I are. Because I could never be that to somebody else ever. I would never imagine doing that kind of thing to somebody else in whatever form of that was that you went through, that I went through, or like, what many people go through in life.
Yeah. And that word predator, a lot of people look at it like, oh, it's like the boogeyman, right? He's a scary looking. No, this guy was well dressed, wore, expensive Italian loafers, and was all about $500, glasses of scotch.
Ugh, gross.
Right. So but it's funny that you say this, because I'm wondering this about you. As I was writing my book, there's a lot of things, even like now, right? Like what happened with you when I heard that word producer. So, but what I was wondering with you, as you're writing the book, did you notice parts of yourself? Oh shit, I still need healing on that. Like this is totally triggering me. I'm throwing up. I'm having a visceral reaction. And it's like, maybe you thought you were healed, but it's like a scab, right? And you got to rip the scab off. That's what happened to me when I was writing my book. I didn't even know it.
Well, I think the thing for me, that's the challenge. I think I'm really going through that right now. And I think that's what is so different about the way I've written this book. I'm definitely noticing those triggers more now and questioning it. When I wrote the part 1 that just came out, it was honestly, the past couple of years have been very hard. To emotionally relive this over and over again has not been easy, but I did it. I wrote the book in a way, and I think this is why it's different, and why I'm living it more now, is because having a theater and actor background, like that was my roots. That's what I always came from. I knew I couldn't just write this book from the perspective of like, this was my life. Like, so writing this book was almost harder than self-publishing because I had to put myself back in the mindset of the version I was in these stories I told. And so that was really hard. It wasn't like a tell-all, like, or this is what happened in my life. This was like putting myself seriously back in the moments and writing it as if I was me back then. So like when I talk about my abusive ex, which was a very hard chapter to write about, and to open up about, because even the people that knew what I went through at the time turned a blind eye, but I also had to write it with, I never wanted to play the victim in this book at all. In any of these situations in life, I owned up to my own self in it. And it wasn't like, woe is me, I went through this. It's like, well, this was my experience and I'm better because of it. But even talking about him at the end of it, it was like, he was the one I wanted a future with. He was the one I saw a future with. I wanted to be enough. But I also knew if I took one more verbal hit, like I would be completely gone. There would be no shell of me left. So I had to find the strength to move on. Or with my high school sweetheart, it was like, the promise of a future that could always meant to be, until he got someone pregnant at 21 years old and then was told he could never talk to me again. So someone else controlled the narrative of my life moving forward. So it was like to go back and constantly not just write, but then edit. And you know how it is. We edit and we edit and we rethink. Like as a producer, I'm like, thank goodness for editors, because just take this from me now. I could sit with this forever, crafting the perfect being a storyteller is not an easy thing. It's a beautiful thing, but it is not easy. So it's like to sit in that and stew. And then I have the music layer in the book. And it's just like, I can't even tell you how many nights I was in my office and the babies are asleep or they're in my arms and I'm bawling my eyes out because it was just reliving it over and over and over again. So I think that was the hard thing with book 1. And now book 2, I'm sitting in like, whoa, why are these things triggering me? Why do they still, And so now
look at me.
It's the healing journey. Yeah, it's the healing journey. Right? Yeah, you could have easily been like, no, Nicole, sorry, this is just not like for me, because it was so much for you to like work through. But then it's like, but we both knew at the, the core of it, we were going to have a beautiful conversation come out of this, whatever this was going to lead to, so. Yeah.
I love that. I'm getting rid of the past tense, like I'm healed, because I feel like what happens is when we say I'm healed from that, right? Because I thought I was healed. I'm just now learning this in the last like week since we started talking. I'm healed from that. I thought I was healed from that. And so then I start beating myself up. I thought I was healed from that. What is wrong with me? What the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why does that still have a hold on me? That kind of thing. I was like, wait a minute. This is a healing journey. Like what you just said. It's a journey, meaning there's going to be times, right? And it's okay. It's just clues. Okay, I still need a little healing there. And one thing I realized, and maybe you do too, I'll never go back to rock bottom. Right? Like never. When that quote that I read in the beginning of this, most people are
most people are just living to die. Here I am just dying to live.
Yes.
And
that like you said, so that's true. Where it starts. And I know what you're going through, girl. I know it, because writing a book like this is not easy, because you are reliving it. And I'm going to tell you this though, on the other side of it, right? You're going to be so proud. Well, you already know this. When you press that public, I was the same way. I was throwing up. I didn't want to even do a launch team.
No, I didn't either.
Part of me didn't even want anyone to read this book. I was like, no, because then they're going to know the truth. And what if they judge me and they don't like me? And what if all these things that I was told about me are actually true? I'm not good enough. I am a fat fucking pig. I am all these things. Like, I'm mentioning that because those are all things that we are told, right? And then we start believing that. And so writing a book like this, and it's funny, you keep saying the word heavy and dark, right? I don't see it like that, because I see it as, you are shedding. When we shed light on dark, dark goes away.
Yeah. And that's the twist in it though, because it's like, even people that know me so well are like, I never would have thought this was your story. Like I did I did a really good job. And I talk about in my book, I did a really good job of hiding it from the world.
Oh my God, me too.
I was 10 years old and had a crown put on my head like this, say what we want you to say or don't say anything at all. Being in judges' chambers at 11 years old, being told I didn't have a voice, my voice didn't matter because I was a child. It's just like, unless you're saying what people want you to say or want you to hear, just shut up and sit quiet and look pretty.
Oh my gosh. Like, we really are soul sisters.
But it really messes with you. And the saddest thing of all is like, okay, cool, fine. The court system did that. Okay, like whatever. People were bullies. Kids are assholes. We know this. Like, fine, move on from it. But it's crazy to me that the loudest noise of all that can change the narrative in our minds comes from the people we're supposed to love the most, or that are supposed to protect us, or that are supposed to always be there for us. And it's just like soul crushing. Like when I talk about having to cut my mother out of my life, and I know, I'm very sorry for your story and everything you've personally gone through too. It's just like, I get a lot of crap for that. But it wasn't easy. It was literally came down to my survival. And it was like, thank you for giving me air, but I can no longer exist in the same space. Like my life as a mother, my life as a woman, like depended on me making a really tough choice. But it's the same person that literally could let me shine when it benefited her, but don't you dare shine too bright, because it's going to expose me and make me look bad about myself, that I'm nothing more than what I'm pretending to be to the world. So let me just take that from you, right? And just go back down. Don't shine so bright. I like to say it kind of as like what I've come to realize is like, through this journey of writing this book, this was the best form of therapy ever. Right? Exactly. I don't want to sit at a wall and talk to a wall. Like, to me, this was like the hardest thing I've done, but I knew it could help people beyond this. And what it's become for me at this point is like, I'm so fucking tired of staying small so other people can stay comfortable. And that's what it is. That's what it is. Oh my God. I swear everything you're saying is giving me chills. I feel like you're reading my mind. I feel like you're my sister from another mother. I feel it too. Because the same thing. When people read my book, they said, oh my God, I had no idea you were going. I knew you when you were going through this. Yeah. Why didn't you say anything? Because you're really good at hiding it, because you're supposed to stay small, right? So I can stay comfortable. So I can pretend to be this and be good, controlling it's like controlling the puppet strings, controlling the narrative, controlling whatever, like as a TV producer, making people believe whatever you want them to believe, but it's so far from real. So it's like, why would anyone want you to shine or be your beautiful, bold voice that you have and say fuck like you do? Like people get so like, I've gotten so much shit and snarls for the fact that I just am honest and unfiltered about the way I speak. But guess what? All those
Me
people
too.
judging and saying things are the ones saying nastier crap when no one's looking.
Right.
Like,
I have
oh,
an
now right now,
episode.
that's
Yeah.
how it is.
I have an episode that you would love probably, and it talks about the real curse words. It's not shit, fuck. It's not all these things that you think it is, right? People say certain words every day that curse themselves. Are much worse than a curse word. And like, that's okay, right? But you say fuck once, and
How dare you be real?
I remember when I first started owning my voice like that, right? I became a personal trainer, and I'm in a gym, right? They're all, I don't know, they were saying things like that. But for me, it was like I was pushing women to do things physically that they were told they couldn't do.
Yep.
Right. They're women like me. Like, they thought they were gym class losers. They thought they didn't have an athletic bone in their body. And then I had women who never swore before, like in their 70s, going, no, you got to throw a fuck at me, Lisa. How am I supposed
so
good? I mean, when you're lifting weights for the first time, right? Or doing something physical, it's like this feeling of power.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I'm allowed. And it's always women who were silenced, right?
Oh, girl, like I will tell you, like I haven't talked about this because this is part of book 2, but I think you're going to get this real good, especially your training background. But like, this is kind of a tease to it. I think book 2 is going to be called Fighting Within the Darkness, or Fighting Through the Darkness. And then book 3 is going to be Beauty Beyond the Darkness. So it really is the journey. But so I started boxing a couple months ago. I think, do you box?
Yeah, I do. I love boxing.
Right? It's so funny because I had someone say to me the other day, it was, who's going through stuff and is like, thank you for, speaking your truth and all this, but I'm going to therapy, you're just boxing. And I'm like, anybody that has never boxed doesn't understand. It is not just a physical thing. It is physical. It is mental. It is spiritual. It is like my boxing coach. The first day I sat down one-on-one with him, he's like, oh, I could talk for like another hour on this, but this is going to be in book 2. But it was basically like him saying, like, when you see a homeless person, right? Like how heavy it looks that they're carrying the weight of their entire life on them. He's like, when I sit here and talk to you and hear about just a small piece of your story, I feel like that's what I see. Like, what would it feel like to just take that backpack off? So this is like the whole thing for, for journey 2. But like, there was one day I went to him a couple weeks ago. So there's this in the story about my abusive ex. I ended up last minute pulling out a story. That was really bad, really dark, but I felt like I needed to talk about one of the darkest nights of our life. And like my husband honestly was like, I feel like this could be incriminating. Do you really want this? People could be knocking on the door being like, do you want to press like all of this stuff? And I was like, do I want that? No. Do I want his family to ever see that side of him? No. I do believe that people are capable of change. None of us are who we are today, who we were back then. And a lot of at the core of it was love, right? Even though it was very Jekyll and Hyde and all of this stuff. So last minute, I ended up pulling out a story that I write, note from me, like this no longer exists in there. But then I found a couple weeks ago, I found a video I didn't know I had on a drive from that night. Yeah, heavy stuff to relive, seeing what I saw that I didn't even remember. I played the camera as just so that I had it, the way I was spoken to, the way all of it was it messed me up for days. So I took it to my boxing coach and I was like, can I show you something in a very just like neutral playing field? I just need to show someone this, right? And he was like, why did you take the story out? And I was like, well, because he's like, but you said that this is you finally speaking your truth. So you still are letting other people control you, not, owning 100% the fact that you're speaking your truth. And I went into this whole thing about like how I had to learn how to verbally fight. Like, that's why I say I wasn't innocent in it. Like, as a verbally, I was not physically abusive. It was a very verbally abusive relationship. And so, but in that, it's like, you're not just going to sit here and take the punches. So I had to learn how to fight back verbally. I don't like that part of me that became like, that's not who I am. And so he kind of challenged me with this whole like Mayweather story and why he's so great. And like people of a certain caliber, right? The kind of predators in the world, that sort of mentality of a person will somehow manipulate you to become the other version of the way they want it to be, right? So it was like, this is the way he fought, and therefore he made you learn how to fight that way because that's the only way he knew how to take the punches. So he goes, usually we teach people how to box. You're going to brawl. Put on those gloves. And for 2 minutes, he made me he first made me write down the name of 5 people on the board that were triggering me. And he put my ex's name down as number 1. And he's like, you're a fighter, Nicole. He's like, there's not a fucking doubt in my mind. He's like, you just have to figure out what kind of fighter you want to be in this lifetime. And for 2 minutes straight, and at 1 minute, I broke down. I was like, I can't do this. He's like, and then he just started yelling at me. He's like, fight, fight, fight. You're a fighter. Fight for you. For any time anyone's ever said something or did something that hurt you or hurt your kids, fight for you and fight for your kids. Fucking fight. In 2 minutes, I stopped and I broke down crying. Like, whew. It was like, I didn't mean to get into this long of a story. I'm so sorry. I just know you know boxing, but it was
don't apologize.
So empowering. So when people are like, it's not just a physical thing. It's physical, it's mental, it's everything. It's just like, we're talking about those triggers and it's like trigger. And it's such a healing release. It's just,
I have so many things to say about this.
Oh my gosh,
I'm so glad that you said this, because the person, first of all, this is for the person out there that says boxing doesn't do anything. I'm in therapy. Okay. I am a therapist. I'm out of that world. I'm a coach now because coaching produces results, right? There, you can talk yourself to death about this. It's not going to do anything. And to the person out there that says boxing is not going to do anything, or personal training is not going to do anything, you have not found the right fucking boxing instructor or the right fucking personal trainer that's going to activate you. Because the quickest way to change a thought is to move a muscle. And your boxing instructor is so smart. He understands that. I got to get her out of this. It's stuck energy in her mind. And he knew if he puts punches to it, movement to it, body to it, that energy is going to go.
It's the same thing you talk about, with the way you open things up. And that's a whole other thing. I mean, we literally could talk for like 5 hours right now. With my challenge with myself of like never emotionally healing the baggage, can that translate to the physical weight you carry? But that's the very first thing he said to me that very first day that I didn't mention when we sat down with the whole backpack thing. He's like, until you heal this, you're never going to heal this. Like, it's so like you have to do the work to internally heal your mind and your heart and your soul. And then everything else is just going to fall off and fall into place. But like your body is constantly going to be in survival mode in some way if you don't deal with the trauma of what you're living with that's trapped inside of you.
You are only as sick as your secrets. It is time to stop suffering in silence and join other women who are also on a healing journey, who are being raw, real, vulnerable, and honest with what they are going through in their life, what they have been through in their life. And wherever 2 or more are gathered, we know God is with us. It says it right there in the Bible. So there is power to group healing. Miracles happen in there. You have one woman sharing, opening up her heart. Suddenly everyone else in the group is saying, yeah, I've experienced that. I'm not the only one. There's such power in knowing that you are not alone in your suffering. You are not alone in your healing. And we meet twice a month. And in between those times, a lot happens, right? And it's important that you have time in between the sessions to practice the healing technique that I teach you, so you can come back into the group and celebrate with the other women. Hey, I actually remembered to do the healing technique in that moment. That trigger didn't derail me anymore. But it's practice. I'm also a personal trainer, right? You don't just get a 6-pack abs by doing one sit-up. You have to keep doing it over and over again. You don't run a marathon. You don't go out and run 13.1 miles for a half marathon the first time, right? You practice running a little bit every day. And that is what we do in Worthy Woman Healing Group. Join today and tell yourself, I'm going to give this a 3-month commitment minimum. because I know I need time to practice outside of these sessions and come in and get guidance from the other women on how to actually heal all of these wounds, heal my mind, body, and soul one trigger at a time. You are worth it. Yeah, it shows up as a physical symptom on your body. And I just love that's the kind of trainer I was, right? When I was just doing personal training, that's when I realized, I'm like, this is not just personal training. These women are me. There's demons living beneath that fat, and we got to drown them if we want to keep that weight from truly coming back. And I'm not talking about physical weight. I'm talking about internal weight that we have been carrying for way too long, right? From the past into the present moment. And so I absolutely kudos to your boxing. Who is your boxing instructor?
Oh, he's amazing. He's and his whole thing is like ex-con to icon. His name is Joe Buckner, and the studio is Beautifully Savage.
Where is it? Is this in Colorado?
Colorado, but he's like expanding out and stuff. And he's just,
I would join. Like, I am so picky about classes and trainers. I have yet to find one. I had a really good trainer that helped me the first time around when I lost 80 pounds. That was only on the outside though. Nothing changed inside.
Nothing, right?
Which is why that predator knew that, right? He's like, oh, here's an opening.
But the cool thing, the amazing thing about a boxing coach is like that a good one is not that it's not just him. He's bred and trained other amazing, coaches that are there as well. So it's really, what I love about it too, is, I didn't mean for this to be a whole boxing conversation, but it's just community. And it's like you show up for yourself, but I've never, ever, and I was just, spoiler alert, we're in Colorado now, the end of the book will explain how that got to that journey. But like spending the past 18 years in Los Angeles, I've never, being in the film industry and all of it, I've never walked into a place and felt like empowered to walk in as me. And that's what's so cool about a community like this is like you're showing up for yourself to do the work for yourself, but there's people giving you pounds with your gloves. There's people picking up your weights. There's people like, it's just such a beautiful community of people that show up when you finally find the strength to start showing up for yourself. It's amazing the people that will rally around you, Right.
And I totally resonate with you not wanting to share that part of your story because I was on social media. I hadn't even published yet, just talking about how I was writing a book, talking about my story. So this predator clearly was I didn't say what the story was. I said nothing, right? Yeah. And he sends these two people to my door to try and silence me. So I can totally relate to this because then I went to my book coach, my writing coach, and I said, I want to take all of that stuff about him out. I just want it to be about my weight loss journey.
Okay.
Right. That's what
did you?
No, I don't know. Oh. However, I went to that place though of, oh my God, I don't know what he's going to do. Right. And he has a shit ton of money. He's probably going to sue me and we don't have money. And we were living in New York City at the time and he lived in New York City. I thought it was during COVID also. And I thought at any moment, I don't know what he's going to do. He's, did
you name him though? Like, did you give him a
No, I didn't name him at all. And I didn't name who he worked for or anything like that, and he was someone I'd known since I was a child. So he's not like some guy that just came in, which made it really easy for him to suck me in because the trust was already built. Right. And there was a lot of, after I started talking, and there was a lot of other women from our high school that he did this to. Because there's already trust built in. So it was easy for him, right? He didn't have to really work so hard to build trust. Anyway, I went to that place though, of I need to take all of this out of here. I don't know what's going to happen. And my writing coach is kind of like, sounds like your boxing coach.
But that's how good those people are at making you, convincing you your mind, even though it's not like, and we worry about these things, but it's just like, I had, someone just messaged me the other day that was like, I wouldn't worry anymore about him because the way you write it, it's just like, if you write your story in a true, honest way, not like I'm calling somebody out, or I want to hurt you because you hurt
No.
me. It's just like, if anything, what it should make that person do if they recognize themselves in your story is take a step back and be like, fuck, what did I do? Who was I?
Right.
Am I, you know, it should
Right.
challenge them to be like, do better, right?
Mhm.
But I can't give credit for that. So that's what you have to hope becomes of it. It's just like, but the fear make you so physically sick, like it made both of us sick, like thinking, oh my God, am I going to be in a dark alley and something's going to happen to me?
And nothing happened. That's my point.
But
it's been 2 years
how many
now.
people that have probably come to you and said, thank you for being brave enough to tell that story. And
So
that
many.
is more important than the fear in our ego and like check it all at the door, because you know what, that's our own stuff and our own issues and our own everything. But it's like, you know, when you can do away with that, you realize there's so much more good to be done when you have the strength to tell your story, you know?
Right. And I knew, like, I fought God on it. I knew God wanted me to write this. I did not want to write this story. I was like, no, I don't know. It's humiliating. It's shameful. You know, it's scary, all these things.
But you also wouldn't be this beautiful light that you are today if you hadn't gone through that and been willing to be like, this fucking sucks that I went through this and I had to experience this, but what's the lesson? Like, and how do I work through it to like move forward and get beyond?
It's so true.
But you wouldn't be you without that, you know? So it's like, it's so important. That's why, like I say, I never ever try to play the victim. I cannot fucking stand people that play the victim cards, or that's just like, woe is me, or that's constantly like negative spiraling. Life is too short. It's just too heavy. It's just so much. It's just be like, this sucks. This happened. I went through all of these things, but you know what? Here I am today, and I wouldn't be me today if I didn't go through that and learn and grow because of it.
So you put it back in the book, right? You didn't take it out.
No.
What? What's going on here?
His chapter is in the book. But it still says like, last minute, I pulled this out because I just couldn't let it exist in print. I'm not saying it won't be in book 2, but it just, at the time, it was so much for me, and I already told so much. I told enough. Like, who wants to write in a book that it's like you can only take being called a cunt so many times? Like,
I had that experience too. I don't know if we kept that in the book, actually. I don't remember if I had that, because he kept calling me that. And I actually don't remember if we put that in the book or not. I don't remember, because I feel like it's a blur.
But what it does is whatever you put in is enough at some point. You know, it's not a tell all, but it's giving you your strength back. And, you know, a month ago, before this came out into the world, I wouldn't have been strong to say, you know, I'm sick of people being fucking cruel. I'm sick of, you know, it's just, I wouldn't have had the strength within me to do this if I didn't have the strength to be like, publish, go out into the world, you know? So it's just like, again, I didn't write that chapter about him to hurt him. I just needed to bring it to the surface that this is what I lived through, and to release that piece of it from like the weight on my back, from the backpack, from all of it, you know?
Right.
And I didn't want to damage him. This wasn't to get back at him for all the things he did to me. Cause again, I said things too. I had to learn to fight too, but it fucking sucked. That was a terrible thing to have to live through, to love somebody so much and be hurt so much that for like 13 years later, I still let that narrative control my mind. I still believed up until I published this that I wasn't enough, that I was never going to be like, he literally was an executive producer at the time. I switched from being an actress to being an associate producer. And he looked at me and told me I was never going to be anything fucking more than what I was in that moment, which was basically beneath him. So for 13 years to allow that noise, that voice, that control to have done so much damage inside of me, that even in all the success I did have and all the shows that I've worked on and everything I've created, this was the first thing I've ever seen completed to the end that was original by myself. And I finally did it because I decided to do away with the noise. But for the past decade plus, that was burned into my brain, that I was never going to be anything more than what I was, which was less.
Okay. What about now? How do you feel now? Do you still believe those things?
No. And
like when you say that, do you feel it anywhere in your body?
I do. I feel a lightness. Like it's something.
Lightness.
My boxing coach is amazing because he wants to always, and I'm a big believer in shifting the perspective. And so he's like, well, how about the fact that like Because I was like, I will not feel what I know I'm supposed to feel until this book goes. He's like, well, how about you look at it as you wrote it, so it's out there, even though it's not. I go, no, not until that book is published and I know it will be in somebody's hands will I feel the weight of so much finally off of me. And that's what happened. And it came out, and it, I was like literally hit down with the flu when it fully went live, and I was not hustling. Oh my God, like 4-year-olds puking on me, all of these things. The other one was sick. I'm sick, right? Like I was literally like so defeated because the pre-launch is so you go, 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 and you hustle. Self-publishing is the hardest fucking game that's out there. I swear, having no team behind you. And I was so sick and I lost momentum. And I was like, this fucking sucks. I worked so hard, 3.5 years. I've written this book. I finally found the strength, and something whispered to me, some knowing something was just like, Nicole, just check. And the book hit #1 as I was like laying in bed being puked on. And I was just,
I had the same experience, that whisper, that just check for no reason, right?
Oh my God.
And you check and it's like #1?
#1. Not even like, it was just like, what is happening? And it's that same whisper that I write on the back of the book. Like, it's your inner knowing. It's just like, most people are living to die. Here I am just dying to live. It's just like, when you can tune out the bullshit and the noise and the predators and the narcissists and the martyr, tune it out. It's everything you need to know. It's not like you need to discover it. It already exists within you. It's just for so long, we had so much crap, so much shit, so much everything piled on top of us to silence us, when it's like everything you need to know in life already exists within you. I'm a big believer in that. But anyways,
I swear it's so interesting. I don't think I've ever had an interview or even just met anyone, even other authors in the group. We share so many similar experiences about just our publishing journey. Yeah. And it's funny because I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, you're a TV producer. This must have been easy for you, right? You do this for a living. Like all these tapes playing in our head. Like, oh, it's probably easy so it's really not. I want other women to hear this, right? That if they are writing or they're thinking about writing their story, that it's not easy, and it's okay that it's not easy, and you're going to grow and learn and evolve just like you have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And honestly, it's so crazy to me because what's hard for me right now is like to just show up as myself and have this conversation with you. Like, as somebody who, before I was a producer, like since I was a child, all I ever knew was performing. Like, I found myself in playing somebody else. And I think that's why I fell in love with the theater, is like, I went through so much shit as a child. Like,
oh my God, say that again. Say that, what you just said again. I
felt more like myself playing somebody else.
Yeah, you said I found myself by playing someone else. That's really what we do in our life, right?
So like in the book, like I do a note from me, and then there's like an intro, and then I go back to the beginning, and like, but it's true. Like at 10 years old, I won a pageant. I had a crown put on my head, and with that came a platform. But at the same time, I legally dropped my Italian last name for my protection. And my locker was.
Whoa! What do you mean for your protection? What does that mean?
Just the firstborn daughter in a prominent Italian family in Chicago. Just a lot of Italian stuff, and
like people would come after you. What do you mean?
My mom, she was convinced that for our safety, that it was just better if I disassociated my entire self completely from the Italian side of me. So at 11 years old, so I went from winning a state pageant with my legal name as it was to winning the national pageant Miss Photogenic as Nicole Danielle. At the same time, I went from elementary school to middle school, which is, a very big time in a young girl's life. My locker was still in the L's, but I was going by Nicole Danielle. And like, the story's in the book. There was one day in biology class where I was sitting there, and my own friends who were sitting behind me, one whispers to the other friend and is like, did you hear about the Sand Club? And the other girl is like, no, what's that? And they were like, the Students Against Nicole Danielle Club. So it's like this whole fucking thing. It's like everyone just I got so much hate for being like this bright light at like 11 years old, but nobody realized that those weren't my dreams. And the reason my name changed wasn't because I was in the witness group. It was just so much garbage and so much shit that at 11, it's like, okay, wow, young girl problems, right? But like, it really does shape your life. So
yeah.
it's after then that I discovered theater. And that's amazing. The theater community is incredible. Anyone who's ever been part of it, it's just such a special group of souls that like literally like it saved my life. But it really was like I found myself in playing somebody else. Like I could go on that stage playing a character and completely consume and embrace it. And there's the world being like, oh, who's that Nicole Danielle? But me up there on the stage, I was just somebody, I was free. I could just be whoever I could be. And the storyteller in me came to life. And it was like the words on the pages was what I felt. And it's just such a beautiful thing. But it's like, so that's what's weird to like be right now, like having this conversation with you. It's like, well, no, this is me as me now. Like I can't hide behind the mask. I can't hide behind the lights or anything. And so it really is a journey in itself. And like, but writing is truly a powerful thing. And like, it's just a process, but like I think, more than anything, it's like you have to, and that's part of like my book. And we haven't even gotten into that. I know we're running out of time probably soon, but like having two young children with autism and one of them being nonverbal, like I couldn't have found the strength to write this book if it wasn't for my son Crosby. And I say that like there's a lot of people I know that like hide their kids' diagnoses or hide the fact that they don't have it, but it's like he is a constant reminder to me that every single person has a voice, right? Like just because he can't verbally communicate with me like this doesn't mean that kid doesn't have a voice. That doesn't mean he can't do things. That doesn't mean that he can be limited. And if I am sitting here never, ever, ever in life going to allow the world to limit my kids just because they check a box, I had to come to the awakening of like, why the fuck am I allowing others to limit me then? Like, and it's such a powerful thing. It goes back to like your first episode with your why, like whatever your why is or whatever it's just, there's so much more beyond what we know, but it's like, you have to get to that place of being willing to like awaken to it, but it's a really powerful thing when you step into that power in itself, like, in that knowing.
Yeah. And back to like the why thing.
Yeah.
That's so important. I'm sure you can relate to this with your book, right? Because if you don't have a strong enough, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? You will just abandon the project, whatever it is in life. That's true. Like you're talking about boxing, right? The gym. I always tell people the gym is a metaphor for life, right? If you half-ass it in a gym, you're going to half-ass it in your life.
Yep.
If you show up in the gym, you cheat yourself. You're cheating yourself. How you do one area of your life is how you do every area of your life. And that's why, and I'm not like saying, kill yourself in the gym. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like, when you are really putting in 100% effort, giving it your best. Not
and that's what it goes down to too, is it's like with that why, like you were throwing up before you published your book. I was throwing up, like I was literally physically sick. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Oh my God, me too.
I'm so terrified. What are people going to say? It's like, here's my heart ripped open and I'm just exploding all over the place.
I know, right?
It's being so real. But here's what it came down to. It was like, Nicole, check your fucking ego out the door. Fear is your ego.
Right?
Get out of the way. Yeah. Your why, yes, your why is like, it feels a great release to get this from in here out on the pages. It feels a great knowing that you have the strength to do this because of your kids. But at the core of the why, biggest why of all is because I could no longer allow other people to feel that they were alone in this, that they've gone through. Yes. I could no longer, and it all came up during the attack I had during the pandemic. The pandemic was crippling for me. It was like this whole thing, and everyone started talking to me about stuff, and it's like, why are all these people going through these things, but nobody talks about it? And it's just real, it's human, it's life. And it was like, more than anything for me or my kids, this was for other people. And so I had to like do away with the fear once and for all and find the strength to do it, because I knew that even if it was one person at a time, these were hard conversations to have in life that people just don't easily have. But I knew it would help, because I wish in all of these experiences I wrote about in life, I wish someone had said something or shared something with me so I didn't feel so alone. But I felt so alone in these past decades. And it sucks, and it's a terrible place to be. So I had to find the strength. I had to stop throwing up. I had to do away with the fear. I had to be like, girl, just trust that there's more to this than what you can see right now, and that this will help more people by clicking that publish button. Because like that at the end of the day, it's like I think of my bio, it says something about being an advocate for authentic and champion for authentic voices. So it's because of my son, it's remembering that you do have a voice, but it's not just knowing you have a voice, it's using it. Because like you never know who needs to hear the stories and what you have to say. Like, and that's a really powerful thing when you can like finally get out of it and put it off and do away with it, to realize that, you know.
So what you just said too about using your voice, because I do a lot of work now with women survivors of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. And the number one thing that's common is telling their story, right? And I read somewhere, I forget who said it, that the storytellers are the ones that are going to change the world. One woman at a time, one survivor at a time. Because if you don't speak your truth, like what you're doing, right? Like what I did, if you don't say, like, this is what happened to me, this was my part in it, this is the truth, right? This is my voice I'm using. People think it's not happening, or they feel alone. There's so many women, like, just now you wrote a book, you're on this podcast. I'm sure you're going to be doing a ton of podcasts, right? And you're going to, I just want, whenever I come in and do my podcast, I always say a prayer. Just let me reach that one woman that needs to hear this today. I focus, like what you said, on one woman, right? And honestly, Nicole, you have been that one woman for me.
Oh, stop it.
No, I'm not kidding. This is hilarious. I haven't even actually read your book yet. And you have already been, I can't wait to read it. But I want to do it when I can read it all.
Yeah.
Like a move. That's the way I like to read books. So I need to like set aside time. But you have been that one woman for me, because you're the only woman. I know there's others like that out there, right? Other authors like us. But you're that one woman author that was honest enough to say, I threw up before I published this. I was so scared. I've never heard, and I know why, right? I know why, because your story, is considered heavy and dark and all these things. And that was me. And I didn't even realize it, that I'd been craving hearing. I just want to know there's one other woman author out there that also, am I the only one that was crazy enough to press publish? I can't be the only one. And so you stood out like a bright light to me, a beam, it was like crazy. I don't really go into SPS anymore, the group. I just don't. And you popped up. I don't even know how you popped up, why you popped up. I don't know. I just know
those groups are a lot, to be honest. I think people.
Yeah. And so you popped up, and just the title of it it sucked me in immediately. Right. And then I'm just reading how honest you're being.
Isn't that crazy to go?
I have got to meet this woman. Like, seriously, you were that one woman for me that I didn't even know I still needed to hear that this was scary, because I was owning the weight loss part of my story. Super easy for me to own. It wasn't always easy for me to own, right? But the predation, the grooming part, all of that, I'm just now starting to own this, which is why we're doing season 2. This is going to be in season 2, this interview.
Oh, okay.
Because season 2 is all about interviewing women who are telling their story for the first time, who are owning their story, who are sick and tired of hustling outside their story and instead living inside of it. So that my main goal for season 2 is to make sure women don't feel alone. And so they also see like prevention of it, right? I feel like a lot of the work I do, the women are already drowning and I'm pulling them out, right? I would like to stop them from drowning in the first place.
You're going to get me right now, because I know we're running out of time, but like in one of the sub chapters, so that's the big twist why it's called Life Through Lyrics. The series is called that, is because I basically scored the entire book.
It's amazing.
Because my son is nonverbal, and music is a way we connect beyond the spoken words. So every single sub chapter is titled after a song that connects with what I felt in those moments. And then like my lead magnet is you have access to my personal playlist, because you never know what version of song someone's listening to. But there's like leading to the absolute darkest part I talk about. The part my editor was like, this is like really, really dark. I was talking about how like the night I almost broke, but thanks to my kid's supervisor, it saved me. But I went to bed that night. My husband was out of town. They were sleeping and I was drinking wine and I just started writing thoughts down. And one of the things I said was, it feels like I'm drowning in the middle of the ocean and there's a pier full of people, but no one's throwing me a life raft. So I take a drink, I take a sip just to numb the pain enough to grab a hold of my own hand and lift myself back up.
That gave me chills.
It's
That's so
hard,
true, though.
but it's life. And that's like the other day, I had a woman come up to me who was just like, can I have a hug? And I knew this woman and I knew she was going through like postpartum stuff. She had a young kid and she had a lot going on. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why? You know, she's just like, I don't want to get emotional, but woman to woman, you know, she's just like, it's just really hard and people don't talk about how hard it is. And so I just want to thank you for writing your book, because she's like, I just needed someone to be real.
Wow.
And it's like, I hate
I know.
about it,
I've
but
heard those same comments, and it's weird when people come up to you and
yeah,
you don't connect it. Like how, like you didn't connect that
no,
my book moved her, made her feel less alone.
yeah.
And I had this impact on it. Like we don't connect that, right? We're
Oh,
just like,
especially being a woman and becoming, you know, the journey to parenthood. It's like you have this most precious gift and everything you've ever wanted, like this thing, right? But it's like all eyes are also on the baby. Like nobody's looking at mom. Nobody sees what mom. No one sees what she had to give up her everything she thought defined her in life. For now, you know, I always say I gave up the biggest part of myself for the best part of myself. But it's hard because society expects you to be this one thing and to do it all and handle it with grace. And it's just like, no, like it's fucking hard, you know.
it's
And
so
I don't
hard.
think people
I always say I was a really great mom until I had my daughter. You know what I mean? Because you think, oh, I could do this. Like I was one of those.
Right?
Like, oh, when I'm a mom, my kid's not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. Right. Well, that fell apart very quickly from the second I got pregnant. And I was like you, we had miscarriages. We had 6 years of infertility. So we have that in common too.
So you know, you get it. But that's why at the end of the day, like it ended up going from like Plan Me to book one being called Diamonds Beneath the Darkness. And just so that your viewers, maybe if they get any takeaway from this, it's what the realization came to be. It's like the darkness is life, like it's what I was existing in, right? But I say that there was always diamonds beneath the darkness because there was always me. Because, you know, a diamond literally is the most indestructible natural element that exists. Like nothing can destroy a diamond. Lava can't even melt a diamond. The only
I did
thing
not know that. I didn't know that.
only thing that can break a diamond is if there's too much built up pressure inside of it. So
What? Oh
like
my God, my mind is exploding right
yeah,
now.
we are all strong, right? And it's like all this shit, all this crap, all this stuff in life that I led me to the darkness. None of it, the storm being in my own mind, like the storm is real, but there's also beauty in that. There's beauty in all of it, right? But it's like the only thing at the end of the day that could have ever have broken me at that point in life is if I broke myself. Nothing, because I'm stronger than any of that. And so are you. And so is everybody else that may watch this or comes across them, like, so we can get through all of the hard shit. Like, but it's like, you know, there's also a reference in it that it's like, there's during a meditation that I had that I was listening to that it transformed into, you know, I am the ocean and I do not fear the waves. It's kind of a similar thing. It's like a diamond, like the ocean, like you can control all of this stuff. It might put us through a lot of hell at times. It might get us to a really dark place. But the only person that can break you is yourself.
So we will be back next week to finish up our conversation that Nicole and I are having and talk about our whys and talk about why she was that one person that I needed on my author journey. Stay tuned and remember, you are worth it.